What is this object dug out of the ground in Mesosilas, Hungary? Around 5 by 5 by 3 centimeters. The spikes in the middle are hollow. The smaller hole is 15 millimeters and the bigger one is 18 millimeters in diameter. It was buried roughly 50 centimeters deep. It could be bronze. It is not magnetic. What is this thing? It's a pyramidal knobbed cavalry mace head from the Byzantine period 9th to 14th century AD. This small mace head was once mounted on a long shaft handle and wielded by a mounted cavalry soldier who would have fought during the time of the late Eastern Roman Byzantine Empire. By this period in time, the power of the military rested with the cavalry, as a majority of the foot soldiers were both inexperienced and poorly armed. Cavalry weapons of this period are very uncommon and rare in the market. Bronze in ancient times was likely an object to display high military rank amongst soldiers, as bronze weapons in this period were very few in number compared to iron. This is in the top 3 of cool things I've seen here. What an excellent find. What is this cabinet with hopper and marble countertop? It doesn't look like it was modified after the fact. Looks like it is in its original form. It has a Lazy Susan type thing with glass bottles in between the hopper and the mill. It's made from what I think is oak and about 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide. Any ideas? It's a Hoosier cabinet. Yours looks to have a flour bin with a sifter and a sugar bin, which were both standard items at the time. This was built from the late 1890s through the 1930s. These were manufactured by the Hoosier Manufacturing Company of Newcastle, Indiana. By the time production peaked in the 1920s, more than 1 in 10 American households owned a Hoosier cabinet, which had them sold 2 million units. What is this antique wooden device with wooden gears inside the top? It appears handles and other items are missing. I found it in my mother-in-law's basement, and she can't remember what it is, just that she got it from her mother, who got it from her mother. Any help identifying this would be greatly appreciated. It's a wooden spinning yarn winder missing the wheel from the 19th century. It consists of a wheel that is revolved by the spinner in order to measure off thread or yarn after it has been produced on the spinning wheel. The weasel is usually built so that the circumference is 6 feet, so that 40 revolutions produce 80 yards of yarn, which is a skein. It has wooden gears inside and a cam designed to cause a popping sound after the 40th revolution, telling the spinner that she has completed the skein. What is this cast iron cylinder found in East Haddam, Connecticut? It weighs about 22 pounds. It was covered in rust that took us 2 days to remove with electrolytic reduction. We thought it was a counterweight. There is no writing or marks on the item, and it is definitely cast iron. The taper is a little over 4 inches long and was cast that way. Please help. It's a line-throwing cannon from the 19th century. This cannon was designed to save lives. It fired a projectile with a line attached to it over the mast of a sinking ship. Crewmen on the ship tied off the line, which was anchored to shore. The life-saving crew rigged up a pulley system to send a buoy with short breeches attached out to the ship. Victims were hauled to shore one at a time. This cannon could shoot the projectile about 700 yards, although in actual rescues, the practical range was much less. What is this thing I found at a flea market? The string rolls off the wheel, goes in a hole at the end of the basin, and comes out the other side. It doesn't seem like it held an awful lot of string. And what would the basin be for? Any ideas? It's a Japanese sumitsubo, or ink line pot, a Japanese version of a chalk line. For centuries in Japan, wooden ink line sumitsubos have been traditionally associated with the daiku, a master Japanese carpenter. It would be filled with absorbent silk or cotton soaked with ink. Then a thin line of silk wound round a wooden wheel would run through at each end of the pond, soaking up the ink, which the carpenter would then snap over the surface to be cut, carved, or painted. What is this thing I found in my deceased grandfather's stuff? He was a spy for the US Army during World War II. He was eventually captured and put in Stalag Luft III, where he continued to send intel to the Allies, as the officers didn't know he spoke fluent German. He actually helped coordinate the escape from the movie The Great Escape. Being a prisoner of war, I don't know why he'd have this, and furthermore what this thing is. Thanks in advance. It's called a gorge, a piece of armor that hangs from a soldier's neck. The name comes from the French word gorge meaning throat. It was often used by the German military field police as a symbol of rank and authority during World War II. What are these things made of? Metal with some kind of coating. They were found in an old cabin in Sweden. My wild guess is something to put your tea bags on, but not sure. Any ideas? You have some of the petals of a mid-century flower ashtray, circa 1960. The design is a nearly exact replica of the Gucci ashtray, or possibly this is an authentic Gucci. The 5 removable petals pull away from the center, once famously used during bridge games, so that individual players or smokers could have their own miniature ashtrays that wouldn't take up too much room on the playing table. I have one of these. I found it this summer at a flea market in Maine. My grandfather gave me this and it seems pretty rare. I just want to know the history or what it is. He said it came from his grandfather in World War II. Any ideas? That's a House Order Knight's Cross, awarded to persons who have rendered special service to the royal house. Your great-grandfather must have served in the royal house for King Willem-Alexander of the Netherlands. My grandfather has this one too. The story he told us was that he saved a girl from the royal family during the war and brought her home by knowing the battlefield and being able to go around or something. That's an honor to be given that. We found this object recently in a crawl space in the attic of our 180-plus-year-old home in rural northern Pennsylvania. It is metal covered in some white substance, potentially due to weathering. There is a 5th prong that was broken off at some point. The screw at the top still screws. Any ideas? It's a negative terminal of an early battery thing called gravity cell. In the 1860s, a Frenchman named Caillot invented a variant of the Daniell cell called the gravity cell. It consists of a glass jar in which a copper cathode sits on the bottom and a zinc anode is suspended beneath the rim. Copper sulfate crystals are scattered around the cathode, and then the jar is filled with distilled water. It quickly became the battery of choice for the American and British telegraph networks, and was widely used until the 1950s. My dad found these while cleaning out my great-grandfather's house. He used to work for the New York Times as a high-up manager for decades. It would be a huge help if I knew what they were. I contacted someone from the Smithsonian and they were highly interested, but I never really pursued it because my dad wants it in the house for now. I was told upwards of about $25,000 a piece for each of the men walking on the moon article and the Nixon resigning article. I still want to learn more about them and get them into the Smithsonian for a bit. What is this thing? Is it rare and is it valuable? Please help me in the comments. Thanks for watching. Let's make life fun.